White people are the only systematically oppressed race in America. And that's not to play victim, it's just stating a fact. Things like diversity quotas, hate crime legislation, up until very recently, affirmative action, race based scholarships, corporate diversity initiatives, minority owned business grants, and equity focused healthcare policies are all systematically prejudicial towards white people. And not to mention the media's portrayal of white people as weak and low class, the constant promotion and glorification of miscegenation despite mixed race couples making up less than 10% of married couples, and the culture it's created where it's socially acceptable to be as hatefully racist as you want towards white people and not any other group. Of course, the justification and cope about these things is that they're correcting historical imbalances and exposing white privilege, which of course is satanic silly goose nonsense. And if you're still saying those things, you shouldn't be allowed to be in public. But it's way past time for white people to start taking their own side and start defending their own people and stop fearing meaningless rhetorical linguistic tricks like being called racist, because at the rate things are going, white people are going to become a hated minority in the country their ancestors founded. And the population has been brainwashed to think you're a hateful bigot if you don't think that sounds very cash money. White people are already a minority worldwide, being only 7% of the entire population, while white females of birthing age are less than 1% of the world's population. America was 90% white Christian for the first 200 years. The acts of the first Congress in 1789 and the Naturalization Acts of 1790, 1795, and 1798 limited citizenship exclusively to white people. Laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act and the National Origins Act established quotas that prioritized immigration from Northern and Western Europe in order to maintain the historic demographics of the country, because up until very recently, everyone knew that racial, cultural, and religious demographics are some of the most important things to ensure a prosperous nation. Why? Because those things matter. Different races have different IQs, cultures, temperaments, religious beliefs, and behavioral predispositions. People are not interchangeable, and the people are what make a nation, not political ideology or government systems. You can look at places like Poland, Russia, Germany, and Japan, who've underwent various different government regimes in a relatively short period, yet they retain their identity because the people stayed the same. Homogeneity exasperates social cohesion, forms high trust societies, and fosters a sense of shared identity, cultural continuity, and collective purpose, which contributes to greater stability and social harmony within a population. Nations can survive left or right wing authoritarian regimes, fascism, communism, whatever, but what they can't survive is radical demographic shifts, which is exactly what has happened in the United States thanks to the melting pot lie coined by Jewish Zionist Israel Zangwill, and especially the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, which was a radical immigration reform that was pushed through without the support of the American people, and which abolished the national origins quota system and stopped favoring immigration from European countries, opening the floodgates of immigration from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So to better imagine it, look at it from a hypothetical microcosm. If you had a Chinese neighborhood where everyone was Chinese, the food, the language, the festivals, the religious beliefs, eating dogs, everything was Chinese, and suddenly a bunch of Arabs started moving into the neighborhood, reproducing at triple the rate of the Chinese to the point where the Arabs start to outnumber them, do you think that the neighborhood would retain its Chinese cultural cohesion, or do you think it would start becoming more Arab? So, if white Christians founded and created America and formed its cultural values and established its own unique identity, how can we expect America to keep that identity when Americans are being replaced with foreigners who not only don't share our values and beliefs, but largely have animosity towards whites and are incapable of assimilating to the culture white people created and sustained? Everyone and everywhere else is allowed to advocate for their people except for white people. Asia is for Asia, Africa for Africans, India for Indians, but America and Europe are expected to be open for anyone and everyone. And it's not an act of love to demographically replace native populations through mass immigration. It actually falls in line with the Geneva Convention's definition of genocide. And it's not going to be solved just by stopping illegal immigration. Legal immigration is just as much of a problem, if not more so, because legal immigrants from places like China and India take high skilled jobs from Americans, and if they're legal citizens, will be harder to deport in the future, whereas illegal immigrants can be rounded up much more easily. What's really needed is a complete stop to all immigration indefinitely. We need to deport as many people as possible and systematically incentivize white Christian people to have more children, because if nothing is done, America will become worse than Brazil. Not a nation, but a violent geographical landmass filled with strangers who don't trust each other and have no real identity.